I'm Denton Davidson for Gold Derby, here with Tonya Lewis Lee, co-director of the documentary Aftershock on Hulu, which follows the deaths of two young women due to childbirth complications. Their bereaved families galvanize activists, birth workers, and physicians to reckon with one of the most pressing American crises today, the U.S. maternal health crisis. Tonya, you're a lawyer, a successful author, and you've worked on several film projects before, but this is your directorial debut. What inspired you to take that leap with this story?
Well, it's such an important topic and so personal to the families. And I really felt that I wanted to and needed to really put my stamp on. I mean, I've been a producer for a long time and I enjoy the role of producer, but for this one, I felt like I really had to have real creative control or input that had to be recognized and acknowledged in a serious, real way. And I'm so happy that I did it.
And you co-direct with Paula Eisels. Can you talk about that partnership and what brought you two together?
Yeah, Paula and we did not know each other until we started on Aftershock together, actually. We met at a women's conference. Paula was at this conference. She had some development funding for a documentary about the US maternal mortality crisis, and I was speaking at that conference. And I was also in talks with some other folks about potentially doing a documentary on the US maternal mortality crisis. But when I saw Paula at this conference and someone mentioned that she was developing a project on the subject, I went over to her, we started talking, we met a week later, had a conversation and understood that we had, first of all, a shared passion for the issue of maternal health and wellness in the United States, specifically focused on the disparities and inequities. And then we also saw that as filmmakers and artists, we had a shared vision of how we wanted to tell the story, that we really wanted to tell the story of this crisis through people's lived experiences. And we wanted it to create a verite style film that would take people on a journey so that they could understand the humanity behind the statistics on the US maternal mortality crisis.
And how did you initially find the families of Shamini Gibson and Amber Rose Isaac, the two women that lost their lives? Because their families are very open with you and allowing you to share their stories. How did you initially come in contact with them?
Yeah, so Shamini Gibson passed away in October of 2019. And in December 2019, her family, her mother, Shawnee Benton Gibson, and her partner, Omari Maynard, put out an invitation to a celebration of Shamani's life on Instagram. We saw that invitation. Paula reached out to Shawnee, just called her and said, we see that you are having this celebration and conversation, quite frankly, about the US maternal mortality crisis. Can we come and film? And Shawnee said, yes. And we were able to go and film the celebration of life and the conversation these families were having with community about what was happening. And then Amber Rose Isaac passed away in April of 2020. Amber had put out a tweet before she passed away that we all saw about the treatment that she felt she was receiving from her doctors. But after she passed away, Omari reached out to Bruce, as he continues to do when other families lose a woman from childbirth complications, just to offer support. Omari told Bruce about our film and what we were doing. Bruce also, a week after Amber passed away, had a press conference outside of the hospital, and we went and filmed. We didn't know Bruce at the time, but we sent a camera out there to film that. But after Bruce met Omari, he told him what we were doing. Bruce too wanted to have the conversation with community about what was happening, and he came on board. And they've been amazing partners. Paula and I call them they are our collaborators, and have been in lockstep with us with the film from the beginning.
And you have access to a lot of home videos, which allows the viewer to feel like they really know Shamini and Amber. How did you get access to all of that? And then how do you decide as a filmmaker, how to edit all of those pieces in and what you want to keep and let go? And how do you get that trust from the family?
Yeah, I mean, we were very lucky. I mean, first of all, in terms of the trust, I will say again, I think that these families really wanted the issue of maternal mortality to be in the conversation. They wanted the word to get out, and you know, we talked a lot. We had lots of conversations with them about what we wanted to do, and they trusted in that we would do it in a way that represented them properly. And in terms of the archival footage of Shamani, specifically of Shamani, her sister Jasmine Gibson is an aspiring filmmaker herself. And so Jasmine is the family archivist, if you will. She captured lots of video on Shamani and her entire family. In fact, they had a YouTube channel that is still up called The Shamazing Life. That captures moments from their lives. And so we were really able to comb through a lot of material. And it was important to us because we really wanted to show Shamani and Amber alive. We wanted people to understand that these were beautiful, vibrant women who had family and community. And so it was a challenge initially to think about, how do we bring in Shamani and Amber as live women? As we're telling the story of them having passed. And I think we felt critically that we wanted people to meet them first and foremost alive. And so that's the open with the film of seeing Shamani with her children, her mother, her sister, her partner, just living her beautiful, wonderful life. And then at some point, I think we really felt like, because we shot through COVID, we also, at the beginning of COVID, gave our families iPhone cameras. And so we were thinking, how do we mix all of the different kinds of footage to make it interesting and work together? And I think it was about striking a balance. You know, we have Verite that we're doing in the film. We have a couple of interviews. We were very clear that we really wanted to go on a journey. We did not want this to be a talking head film. So we use our experts very carefully and very strategically throughout the film, as well as even our graphics. We had a wonderful person who did the graphics because it was important to get the data and information through as well in the film. So really being thoughtful and strategic about how we blend everything together to be able to tell this story, and still at the same time make sure the families were the heart of the film.
And one of the things that hit me was when Omari and Bruce meet, the partners of the women that lost their lives. And you mentioned that Omari had reached out to Bruce, but you filmed that meeting. What was it like to see? I mean, we don't see a lot of single fathers really in the media or on film, probably especially Black single fathers. So what was it like just to see them get together and share that shared experience between the two of them?
Wow. I mean, I have to say, in general, watching this brotherhood has been just amazing and heartwarming. You know, I think you're right. We often don't see Black fatherhood at all, whether it's single fatherhood or otherwise, represented very often. And these just happen to be two amazing men. I think for us, we were really struck by the amount of support and vulnerability that they were able to experience between them. And I will tell you, they continue to be extremely supportive of each other. Bruce talks all the time about how he feels that Omari really saved his life. Their children are friends and family now. They are family, and they continue to pay it forward. If they hear of someone who's passed away, a woman from childbirth complications, they reach out to that partner and bring them into the fold, and really are tremendously supportive. It's just amazing to watch, and they're wonderful men, and I'm so proud of them and grateful to them for the work that they continue to do.
And the Black maternity death rate is 4 times higher for Black women than their white counterparts. And that's not just due to healthcare that they're seeing, but just systemic racism within those hospitals, doctors not taking seriously what pain they're in. What do you think is ultimately the root of that problem? And then what do you think is the first thing that would need to be addressed to sort of wipe that out?
Yeah, look, I think, often people say, oh, the system is broken. Well, from my perspective, what I see is the system works the way it was set up to work. Unfortunately, hospital systems are set up so that those that are the most vulnerable, unfortunately, are often treated by the people with the least experience. And I understand residents need to learn how to learn, but learning on human beings who have serious vulnerabilities often causes issues. I think, as you mentioned, I think that schools, medical schools, the way they are taught and the way doctors are even trained, I have empathy for them because they are often dehumanized. It's rigorous, and I'm not saying we can't have rigor in our education system, but I think that they are under a lot of pressure. I think they are often very dehumanized. And so by the time they get to their patients, their humanity is a bit eroded. And so I think that we really need to look at how we're teaching our doctors. I also think we need to hold our insurance companies accountable. Insurance companies have a lot of power. They could reimburse for natural or vaginal births more than they do C-sections if they chose to, and they could support doulas and midwives. And so I think that all of these things could come into play. And the good news is there are conversations out there that are happening right now. We've been able to talk to insurance companies, medical schools, hospitals have reached out to us to ask us to show the film, to have these conversations. And so at least the conversations are happening, and I hope they continue.
You filmed this before Roe v. Wade was overturned. So I'm curious to know if you were surprised by that decision, and what's your biggest concern about that affecting women's maternal health care now?
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, it was a gut punch to me that in 2022, we are still talking about and discussing the autonomy of a woman's body. And I have deep concerns about what's going to happen. It was good to see that in these midterm elections that some states, guaranteed abortion in their constitutions, but there are others where I worry that women will be criminalized for miscarriages. I worry about the delay of care. There have been studies that have shown that there will be more deaths from this situation. I think it's a terrible, terrible situation for women in this country and families in this country. And so I was disheartened. But I will say, it was good to see that people showed up in this midterm election because politics do matter. We'll see how it goes. But it's devastating to me that we are still debating who has autonomy over a woman's body.
And you also discuss in the film the importance of midwives and doulas, and you even go through sort of a history of how they were pushed aside so men were really in charge of women's reproduction. I'm curious about what that was like filming with that woman that allowed her childbirth to be shown, and what made her agree to that. That's being pretty open with an audience that's going to view this on a large scale.
Yeah, I mean, we met Felicia in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and as she says in the film, she really thought she was going to go the regular way with the doctor at the hospital. We subsequently learned after filming with her that she had heard about Amber's story, and that hearing about Amber's story and her death made her consider maybe there are other options out there for me, and she went looking for a midwife. I think that for her, she understands the seriousness of the issue in our country and really was open to sharing her story, sort of like Shamani's family and Amber's family, to help us all see what's possible. And she found an amazing place to give birth, and spoiler alert, had an amazing birth, and we were lucky to capture it, and grateful to her and her family for allowing us into such an intimate moment. But I think it was really important. It's funny, I will say, someone at one point said, "Oh, I thought that scene might have been a little long," but then I realized, oh, that's the point. That's what a natural birth is. It's a process that takes time, and most of us don't have the opportunity to really see and experience that.
And Amber's estate ends up suing the healthcare system that failed her, and that sort of left. I mean, they're awaiting their day in court. Do you have an update on that, or are they still waiting?
They're still waiting. It's still ongoing. I think Bruce remains cautiously optimistic, but I think he has a tough battle ahead of him. But he's still fighting the fight, and we're all waiting to see what happens.
And your husband is Oscar winner Spike Lee, and so I'm curious, what's it like to have two filmmakers in the house now? Do you seek each other's advice, or are you like, leave me alone, let me do my thing? What's that working relationship like?
It's funny. I don't think he seeks my advice at all. Well, then he would say that's not true. But I would say that I think we're really supportive of each other. It is so fun. It's so great. I am very fortunate because we both understand what the grind is. We understand what the work is. And so we're just awesomely supportive of each other. I think he's really proud of me and the fact that I have stepped into this role as director, and for him, that's a big deal to me, that he feels good about me doing that. And so I certainly did ask him advice. I showed, and we show each other rough cuts, and, we ask for notes. We're always trying to make each other better. So it's really a great, fun thing.
What excites you the most about being a documentary filmmaker, especially now when there's so much more access, so many more people are watching? I mean, when I was younger, I was maybe one of the film geeks that would go rent a documentary, but now you have great partners like Hulu, where your film can be seen, that are really bringing such a wider audience in. So what's the most exciting thing for you about documentary films?
I think it's great and amazing that right now people are excited to watch documentaries. I like you, I remember, documentaries were sort of educational. Nobody really, you kind of watched them, but if you got a really good one, it was really exciting. And I think it's still that way, right? I mean, there are a lot of documentaries out there, and I think people are looking for just being able to get a view into people's lives, into what's really happening, sort of behind the scenes. And documentaries can be so amazing. One of my favorites is Honeyland. And to me, that documentary, like, you're immersed in a world in a way that you almost forget it's even a documentary, and yet it's so intimate. And you get a piece of someone's life that I certainly would never have known. So I think documentaries can take us into amazing worlds, take us behind what's happening with people in an intimate way. They can be really educational, really empowering, and really inspire people for change. I will say that for me, Eyes on the Prize is one of those documentary projects that just showed me what the power of documentary film can do. And again, like my husband's film, Four Little Girls, I mean, because of that film, people who had gotten away with murder eventually were caught and put in jail. So documentary is extremely powerful, and I think it's really exciting to be in the space.
Well, Aftershock is certainly one of those powerful documentaries. Everyone can see it on Hulu, so go stream it right now. To everyone watching, head over to goldderby.com, make your Oscar nomination predictions for the 95th Academy Awards. And Tonya, it was a pleasure to speak with you today about Aftershock.
Thank you so much, Denton. Really enjoyed the conversation.